In our last video, we'd spoken about the Empress and how the Empress was the latest in this procession of the first few major arcana cards, which are all meant to represent the whole process of initiation. With the Fool, you have the initial moment of receiving initiation. The Magician reaches the door of the temple, and to enter the door, he has to have the balance of his 4 elements. So for initiation, you have to take this kind of wild leap. And then for the initiation to be productive in creating a change in you, you also have to balance out your inner self, balance out your elemental self, your environment and your surroundings. Then you enter the temple, and there you get a glimpse of the divine, which is what the High Priestess represents. And this High Priestess creates an inner change inside of you. The Empress then represents making an outer change, a change in you, but that is visible to the world, which is what you must do with it if you're to be able to keep moving forward into the temple. And the Emperor is a continuance of this represented by the Empress. The Emperor means beyond just the change that happens in you, there has to happen also a change in all of your environment. So the High Priestess is an internal change, the Empress is an external change in you, and the Emperor is an external change in your environment because of all the change that has been going on inside of you. This explains why in this procession you see the Empress first and then the Emperor. The Empress, normally you would have in the kind of patriarchal hierarchy that the cards came out of, in that environment and in that culture, you would think you'd hear first the Emperor, then the Empress. But the reason the Empress comes first is because these cards are symbolic, and the symbolism is this feminine symbolism of this internal self, and the masculine was symbolic of the external. And so the High Priestess has to come first, and then the Empress, and then the Emperor, and then the High Priest. Because the High Priestess represents the inner spiritual, the Empress represents the inner personal, the Emperor the outer personal, and then the High Priest the outer spiritual. So the Emperor card, I'll show you how he looks like on the version in this deck. You see the Emperor is a figure of authority. He's sitting on a cubic throne, and he's ruling from that throne. That cubic throne is a symbol of perfection. It means that he's transformed himself, and his authority comes out of that inner transformation that's been happening for him. So that's what it's based on. That's what he's sitting on. That's what the change is, where the change is coming from. If you change yourself on the inside and you show that change on the outside, then your environment, the people and the things around you are bound to change. And the Emperor is sitting. He's a passive figure. He's not out conquering or killing or having to fight or having to even give orders. The change is just all happening around him. And this is because if you try to change the world without changing yourself, you have to fight and struggle, and you will misdirect yourself, and some changes will happen and others will not, and some changes will be natural and others will not, and some changes will last for a little while and some will last longer, but entropy will come back in, right? And if you aren't any different, then you can't really hope to change your environment, because your inner habits will keep leading you back to the same outer environment. Now, if you've changed your inner self first, then you change your outer self. As a reaction to that inner change, you make actual changes in your life, as far as you are concerned, then obviously your environment will also change. The best way to change somebody around you or something around you is to first change yourself. And then your example will create a ripple. It'll create a space, a field of effect where other people might also have the opportunity to change, and where certain natural shifts will occur. People who don't want to change with you will go away from you. People who do want to change with you will come closer to you. Things will alter to adjust to the new inner reality that you have. And in this card, you see this symbolized by this kind of field around the emperor, which is the egg, it's the Orphic egg. And it's an ancient symbol. In Mystery School talk, we call this the Buddha field. And this is supposed to be the egg of the phoenix. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it there, but that's the phoenix, right? So the emperor is a sign of rebirth. Initiation is becoming born again. That's the first stage of the mystical path, is to be reborn with a new name and with a new way of doing things. So the emperor is a figure with armor, and he has a sword. He's prepared, but he doesn't have to actually act beyond simply taking authority over himself, and that authority creates authority over his environment. His hand rests on the world. And the emperor has two crowns. The crowns are symbolic that he is a master over himself, over his inner self, and over his outer world. So this card suggests that when you work on this inner change in yourself, first you have to go inside. You have to go within yourself. When it's the time of the magician, of the high priestess, when these are the cards you're dealing with, it's saying, first, go in here, work on within, go inside of you. Change these things from within, change your perspectives. The Empress, when that card comes up, it's saying, change yourself in the outer world, change what you're doing, change how you're looking, change what you're in and what you're working at and what your environment is and what people you're with. But all as in you, right? Your change within you manifested externally. And so for the Empress to have any meaning, it has to be preceded by these cards of interchange, the Magician and the High Priestess. And for it to reach its completion, the Empress has to be preceded by the Emperor, which is a sign that now you've changed your inner self, you've changed your outer self, and now your environment will change itself. This is not an active card. This is a card of simply accepting that authority of your Buddha space. The Buddha field, by the way, is not something that only Buddhas have, because everybody is really a Buddha. They just don't realize it. And anyone who practices any awareness, anyone who practices any inner change and who tries to be a witness and who tries to be meditative is creating that space around them. So the only responsibility the Emperor has is to own up to that space, to open that space, to be open to the world and help the world to change just by creating that space of openness. And if you do that, you transform the world more effectively than you ever could by the force of arms or by the force of your will.